Hello and a very good evening. You're watching the news at 6 on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Pereira. Here are the headlines. Government insists that it is committed to hold winter session. Parliamentary Affairs Minister Anand Kumar rebuts Congress charge of delaying session to prevent opposition from raising pertinent questions. Dalveer Bhandari, re-elected as the Indian nominee to the International Court of Justice, gets 183 of the 193 votes in the General Assembly and all 15 votes in the Security Council. At the close of the last day of filing nominations, 377 candidates filed papers for the first phase polls in Gujarat on December 9th. Congress releases second list of 9 candidates. Aam Aadmi Party releases third list of 13 candidates. And security forces gunned down 3 Lashkar-e-Toiba militants in an encounter in Handwara district. Encounter comes 2 days after 5 militants were killed in a similar gun battle in Bandipora. Well, India's Dalveer Bhandari got elected to the International Court of Justice panel of judges in a dramatic fashion after UK withdrew its candidate, bowing before the overwhelming support in the UN General Assembly for the Indian judge. It is being seen as one of the biggest diplomatic victories for India in recent years. This will be the first time in the 71-year-old history of the ICJ that there will be no British judge. Here's a detailed report. In a big diplomatic victory for India, Indian nominee to the International Court of Justice, Dalveer Bhandari, was re-elected on Monday, with all but 10 of the UN General Assembly members backing him. Bhandari received 183 of the 193 votes in the General Assembly and secured all 15 votes in the Security Council for the final vacancy in the ICJ. 70-year-old Bhandari was declared re-elected for a fresh 9-year term at the ICJ after Britain withdrew its candidate Christopher Greenwood from the race.
The jurists Mr. Ronnie Abraham, Mr. Dalveer Bhandari, Mr. Antonio Augusto Gansado Trindade, Mr. Nawaf Salam, and Mr. Kwawi Ahmed Yusuf has been elected to the International Court of Justice for a term of office of 9 years.
यूएन के नॉन सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल मेंबर्स ने 3/4 देशों ने भारत के पीछे समर्थन की घोषणा कर दी थी और इंग्लैंड के प्रतिनिधि को अपना नाम वापस लेना, तो अपने आप में पूरे यूएन में लोकतांत्रिकरण की भी एक नई प्रक्रिया.
President Ramnath Kovind congratulated Dalveer Bhandari and called the victory a diplomatic milestone. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu too congratulated Justice Bhandari for the victory, saying that his win signifies India's rising stature on the global stage. Prime Minister Narendra Modi credited the efforts of External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj and MEA officials for the re-election of the judge to the prestigious World Court. Meanwhile, External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj congratulated Justice Bhandari on his victory.
It's also a personal victory of Justice Dalveer Bhandari, who has been a fine judge. But more important than the individual victory is the victory of India. It shows that India is now emerging as an important nation, and ultimately the British government had to back out.
So let the government not forget that Justice Dalveer Bhandari has already completed 1 full term. And now he will start his 2nd term. Last time we did not have such tension or such a contest when India's nominee was challenged by one of the P5 countries and one of the strategic partners of India.
This will be the first time since the ICJ was established in 1945 that there will be no British judge. Also, it is for the first time in 70 years a permanent member of the Security Council lost to a non-permanent member for a seat at the ICJ. The ICJ has a bench of 15 judges, 5 of whom are elected every 3 years for a 9-year term. To be elected, the candidate is required to have a majority in both the chambers. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television. Well, the ruling BJP and the opposition Congress had angry exchanges over the timing and duration of the winter session of Parliament. The government clarified that the Cabinet Committee on Parliamentary Affairs will soon decide the dates for the session. The BJP and the Congress on Tuesday expressed differences over dates for the upcoming winter session of Parliament. Parliamentary Affairs Minister Anant Kumar insisted that the government is committed to hold the session.
We are committed to hold winter session. It will be a normal session. And Congress, because it has no other issue, it is unnecessarily raising this bogey.
The Congress alleged that the government was delaying the session to prevent the opposition from raising pertinent questions.
जिस तरह से नवंबर में शीतकाल सेशन को स्किप किया गया और कोई वजह नहीं बताई गई।
ये कोई नई बात है क्या? मैं पूछूंगा, क्या कांग्रेस के लोगों को प्रचार नहीं करना है क्या? अगर कांग्रेस पार्टी के लोग ये पब्लिकली घोषणा करें कि हमारे अध्यक्षा वर्तमान, हमारे भावी अध्यक्ष, हमारे सारे नेता इस शीतकालीन सत्र में प्रामाणिकता से सुबह से शाम तक बैठेंगे और उनको चुनाव प्रचार करने के लिए नहीं जाना है, तो सरकार गंभीरता से विचार करे।
The winter session usually begins in November and ends after 4 weeks. While the Constitution doesn't specify how many times Parliament should meet in a year, it does state that the gap between two sessions should not exceed 6 months. Technically, the government has time till February to call a session, 6 months from August when the monsoon session ended. Kriti Mishra's report for Rajya Sabha Television. Well, let's now get you the latest from the election-bound state of Gujarat in verdict 2017. The Aam Aadmi Party released its third list of 13 candidates for the Gujarat elections. Contesting elections independently in the state, it has fielded 33 candidates so far. The selected candidates come from various backgrounds. They include farmers, village sarpanches, retired flight attendants, teachers, RTI activists, social activists and traders. While addressing a rally in Bhavnagar in poll-bound Gujarat, BJP President Amit Shah today said this election was not just a fight between two parties but a battle between the casteist policies and dynastic rule of the Congress and Prime Minister Narendra Modi's developmental policies. He also took a jibe at Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi, stating that he was visiting Gujarat like it was a tourist spot. Shah further claimed that the UPA government had done nothing for Gujarat. During his address, he also questioned what the Congress did for Gujarat when it was in power for 10 years as opposed to Narendra Modi, who gave the bullet train, the Ro-Ro ferry service and also an international airport.
कांग्रेस जिस तरह से राज्य में जातिवाद की राजनीति कर रही है, पूरे चुनाव का मुद्दा विकास के मुद्दे से भटकाकर जातिवाद की ओर ले जाने का प्रयास कर रही है, उससे जनता की नाराजगी स्पष्ट रूप से दिखाई पड़ती है। अगले सभी रिकॉर्ड तोड़कर भारतीय जनता पार्टी श्री विजय रूपाणी और नितिन पटेल के नेतृत्व में और नरेंद्र भाई के नेतृत्व में 150 सीटों से ज्यादा सीटें जीतकर एक रिकॉर्ड बनाएगी।
Well, today was the last date of nominations for the first phase of Gujarat Assembly polls. 377 candidates from various parties have so far filed their nominations for election to 89 seats on the 9th of December. Nominations for the second phase started on Monday and will be filed till 27th November. Polling for the two-phase election for the 182 seats will be held on December 9th and December 14th. Votes will be counted on the 18th of December. Well, the Congress today released its second list of 9 candidates for the Gujarat Assembly polls. Names in the list include Pradyumna Singh Jadeja, who will contest from Abdasa, Adam B. Chakki, who will contest from Bhuj, Santok Arethia was given a ticket from Rapar, Mitul Donga will contest from Rajkot East, Dinesh Chowatia will contest from Rajkot South, while Jeevan Kumbar will contest from Jamnagar North. Ashok Lal will contest from Jamnagar South. Vikram Madam from Khambalia and Miraman Goria will contest from Dwarka seat. The party replaced 4 candidates on the list announced on Sunday, while including 4 new nominees. On Sunday, the Congress released its first list of 77 candidates for the first phase. Moving on to other news now, 3 LET militants were killed in an encounter with security forces in Handwara of Jammu and Kashmir. Security forces launched a search operation following information about presence of terrorists there. Here's a report.
Security forces on Tuesday killed 3 Lashkar-e-Taiba militants during an encounter in Handwara district of Jammu and Kashmir. Security personnel launched a search operation after receiving information about the presence of militants in the Magam area.
As per drill, the terrorists were asked to come out and surrender, but they preferred to open up and they fired on the search parties. The fire was retaliated and the encounter continued for about one hour or 1.5 hours. And three unidentified Pakistani militants affiliated with Lashkar-e-Taiba were eliminated.
3 AK-47s and some more ammunition were recovered from militants even as the search operation in the area continued. The encounter comes 2 days after 5 militants were killed in a similar gun battle in Bandipora district.
ये बहुत ही अच्छे तालमेल का उदाहरण है जो कि LC फॉर्मेशन जो हिंटरलैंड में फॉर्मेशन लगे हुए हैं उनका, पुलिस की एजेंसी जितनी है यहाँ पे, इंटेलिजेंस की एजेंसी जितनी है यहाँ पे, उन सब के तालमेल के बदौलत आज का ये ऑपरेशन है जो सरअंजाम हुआ है। और दूसरी बात मैं ये कहना चाहूँगा कि ये ऑपरेशन बिल्कुल ही हमने सर्जिकल स्टाइल से किया है ताकि कम से कम आवाम को परेशानी हो।
According to the army, security forces have killed at least 190 so far in this year in Jammu and Kashmir. Around 200 more militants are allegedly currently active in the valley. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu arrived in Kochi today after wrapping up his 2-day trip to Hyderabad. Around 40 differently abled children from the NGO Centre for Empowerment and Enrichment met the Vice President at the Kochi Circuit House. Naidu said every child has special ability and should be nurtured in a way that it helps them to lead a dignified life. But in other news now, weather conditions improved in Jammu and Kashmir after 3 days of snowfall. The historic Mughal Road, which is the alternate link between Kashmir and the rest of the country, was reopened for vehicular traffic this morning. The road was closed on Friday evening after high altitude areas received over 2 feet of snow, the first heavy snowfall of the winter this season. Jammu region recorded a low of 8.8 degrees Celsius against the previous night's 8.7 degrees Celsius. As per Met officials, the minimum temperature continues to stay 3 degrees below normal in the region. Well, here's a quick look at what else is making news across the country in our segment Nationwide. An MLA from the Sharad Yadav faction of the Janata Dal United today approached the Delhi High Court challenging the Election Commission's order. This after the election panel recognized the Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar-led faction as the real JDU and awarded the party symbol to it. Gujarat legislator Chotu Bai mentioned that the matter before a bench for urgent hearing in view of the Gujarat Assembly polls. The bench listed the matter for urgent hearing tomorrow. The Delhi High Court told local authorities to consider airlifting the 108 feet tall Hanuman statue from New Delhi's Karol Bagh area. The High Court bench referred to a petition filed by an NGO which alleged that there have been many encroachments in the area surrounding the Lord Hanuman statue which need to be removed, and it is possible only if the deity is moved from that spot. Sagar Kavach, the 3-day-long coastal security exercise, will be conducted in Kerala and Lakshadweep Islands from today. The exercise is a half-yearly event with an objective to assess the coastal security mechanism and validate standard operating procedures. At least 10 bodies were recovered from debris after a 4-story factory in Ludhiana caught fire and collapsed. Around 20 others are still feared trapped under the rubble. The cause of the fire remains unclear, but reportedly it was a result of a powerful explosion triggered by chemicals and plastic material stored in the factory. The Gurugram District Court today granted bus conductor Ashok in the Pradyuman murder case. Ashok's lawyer Mohit Verma said that the Central Bureau of Investigation had not presented any evidence against his client. CBI has not given a clean chit to anyone so far. Moving on, now India and Russia agreed today to implement the General Declaration for visa-free entry of the crew of chartered and scheduled flights between the two countries. A Home Ministry official said officials of the two countries signed an agreement to this effect. It will facilitate visa-free entry, stay and exit of aircraft crew of the designated airlines as well as other aircraft companies operating chartered and special flights. 1,200 scheduled flights and about 1,100 Russian chartered flights fly between India and Russia every year. President Donald Trump, in the latest demonstration of increased tensions on the Korean peninsula, placed North Korea back on the list of state sponsors of terrorism. Trump announced the move on Monday during a public meeting with his cabinet at the White House and said that the Treasury Department will announce new sanctions against North Korea. Here's more. U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said on Monday that the move to designate North Korea as a state sponsor of terrorism will help dissuade third parties from supporting Pyongyang.
I call it the peaceful pressure campaign. The president calls it the maximum pressure campaign. So there's no confusion. They're one and the same. And I think this is, though, to hold North Korea accountable for a number of actions that they've taken.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on Tuesday welcomed the U.S. president's move to put North Korea back on a list of state sponsors of terrorism, saying it would ramp up pressure on Pyongyang.
我が国は米国による北朝鮮のテロ支援国家再指定を北朝鮮に対する圧力を強化するものとして歓迎し、そして支持いたします。
Other leaders too welcomed the move, saying Kim Jong-un was running a global criminal operation from North Korea and threatened the stability of the region.
Kim Jong-un runs a global criminal operation from North Korea, peddling arms, peddling drugs, engaged in cybercrime, and of course threatening the stability of the region with his nuclear weapons. So that's we strongly welcome that decision, and it mirrors the determination of the international community on bringing North Korea back to its senses that we saw in Manila and Da Nang recently.
이번 테러 지원국 재지정에도 불구하고 북핵 문제의 평화적 해결을 위해 북한을 대화 테이블로 이끌어내는 노력을 지속한다는 한미의 공동 입장에는 변함이 없습니다. 한미는 각급에서 긴밀한 공조와 협의를 지속해 나갈 것입니다.
Meanwhile, China's foreign ministry said it hoped all parties could contribute to resolving on the Korean peninsula peacefully.
当前半岛局势高度复杂敏感，我们还是希望有关各方都能够多做有利于形势缓和、有利于所有相关各方重回谈判，通过对话协商来解决半岛核问题的正确的轨道，多做这样的一些。
The designation of North Korea came a week after Trump returned from a 12-day five-nation trip to Asia in which he made containing North Korea's nuclear ambitions a centerpiece of his discussions. It allows the United States to impose more sanctions on Pyongyang, which is pursuing nuclear weapons and missile programs in defiance of UN Security Council sanctions. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television. Well, the political crisis in Zimbabwe continues, with President Robert Mugabe refusing to step down. Zimbabwe's ousted Deputy President Emmerson Mnangagwa has asked President Robert Mugabe to respect public opinion and step down. He also said that he will only return home if he was assured of his security. In a statement, he said, "The people of Zimbabwe have spoken with one voice, and it is my appeal to President Mugabe that he should take heed of this clarion call by the people of Zimbabwe to resign so that the country can move forward and preserve his legacy," unquote. Meanwhile, Zimbabwe's ruling ZANU-PF met its MPs to decide the course of action ahead of the impeachment proceedings. This after Robert Mugabe ignored a Central Committee deadline to tender his resignation by Monday midday. The influential Zimbabwe National Liberation War Veterans Association began another protest demanding that Mugabe step down.
You need two-thirds majority for it to pass, and the two-thirds is there. I'm sure this is not about any political party, it's about the country, it's about the good governance of the country.
It will be a sit-in until Mugabe's back is seen by the people of Zimbabwe. We are not going to be leaving Harare until he's gone.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel has said that she would prefer new elections to leading a minority government. This after talks on forming a three-way coalition failed, plunging the country into political crisis. Merkel said she was skeptical about ruling in a minority government. She also said that she did not see any reason to resign from her post despite the failed negotiations. The failure of talks raises the prospect of a new election and casts doubt about Merkel's future after 12 years in power. However, Germany's President Frank-Walter Steinmeier told the parties they owed it to the voters to try to form a government. Steinmeier said Germany was facing the worst governing crisis in the 68-year history of its post-war II democracy.
Auch zu bewältigen hat, sicherlich einer, den man sehr, sehr genau überlegen will. Ich will heute nicht und niemals sagen, aber ich bin sehr skeptisch und glaube, dass dann Neuwahlen der bessere Weg wären. Ich will allerdings auch sagen, die Wählerinnen und Wähler haben uns einen Auftrag gegeben.
Wir stehen jetzt vor einer Situation, die es in der Geschichte der Bundesrepublik Deutschland, also seit immerhin fast 70 Jahren, noch nicht gegeben hat. Die politischen Parteien sind nun mehr als zuvor gefordert.
Well, here are some updates from across the world in Global Buzz. Russian President Vladimir Putin held talks with Syrian leader Bashar al-Assad on Monday. Both agreed that the Syrian conflict needed a political solution. Putin said that he will also hold telephonic discussions on the issue with US President Donald Trump and Middle Eastern leaders, including the Emir of Qatar. Argentine submarine Ara San Juan, which is missing since last Friday, still remains out of contact. The Argentinian Navy says rough seas and strong winds have stalled rescue efforts. Weather conditions are likely to improve over the coming days and are expected to allow search efforts to move forward. Pakistan refused to allow free use of the Chinese yuan on the lines of the US dollar in the country as officials from the two nations met to decide on a long-term developmental plan under the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. The meetings of senior officials from Pakistan and China decided to move ahead despite hurdles. Well, moving on to some sports news now, where Olympic silver medalist PV Sindhu will lead India's challenge at the Hong Kong Super Series starting at Kowloon City in Hong Kong today. Sindhu had suffered a loss against China's Gao Fangji in the China Open Super Series premiere last week. Among other Indians, national champions Saina Nehwal and HS Pranoy are also in the tournament. World number 10 Pranoy will face Hong Kong's Hu Yun in the opening round, while world number 11 Saina will face Denmark's Mette Paulsen in the women's singles. Here are some updates from the world of sports in SportsBeat. Indian boxer Ashta Pava reached the quarterfinals, while Shashi Chopra made it to the last 16 stage of the ongoing IBA Women's Youth World Boxing Championships in Guwahati. Ashta defeated her Bulgarian opponent Melis N. Yonuzova in the 69 kg category. Shashi defeated Uzbekistan's Rakhmatova Durdanakon in the 57 kg weight category. She will face China's Lin Li Wei Yi next. Italian Soccer Federation President Carlo Tavecchio resigned a week after the national team failed to qualify for the World Cup finals for the first time in 60 years. Tavecchio was under pressure to step down after a goalless draw against Sweden, which made Italy miss out of the World Cup for the first time since 1958. Australian cricket vice-captain David Warner said an injury sustained during training won't keep him out of the Ashes test. Warner took a high ball during a training session which injured his neck. The first of the 5 test Ashes will be played at the Gabba in Brisbane from Thursday, with the 5th and the final set to begin on January 4th. Well, that's it on this newscast. Do stay tuned for the big picture coming up on the other side of this short break.